What if being too quiet isn't a weakness, but the reason people misunderstand you so easily? A lot of people assume that if someone talks less, they must have less to say, but that's not true at all. Sometimes quiet people are simply more observant, more selective, and more careful with their energy. They may not speak first, they may not dominate the room, they may not feel the need to explain themselves all the time. And because of that, other people often misread them. In this video, we're going to look at 7 signs you're too quiet for most people. Let's get into it. One of the most common things quiet people experience is being labeled as shy, but sometimes that's not what's happening at all. You may not be nervous, you may just be watching, listening, and taking everything in before speaking. Quiet people often need time to understand the room before they join in. They're not absent, they're processing. The problem is that many people interpret silence as insecurity, when in reality it can be awareness. So if people constantly assume you're shy when you're really just observing, that's a sign your quietness is being misunderstood. This is something quiet people hear all the time. Why are you so quiet? You should talk more. Say something. What others may not realize is that talking more does not automatically make someone more valuable, interesting, or intelligent. Some people simply don't feel the need to speak unless they actually have something meaningful to add. But because most social environments reward loudness, quiet people are often pressured to become more verbal than they naturally are. If people keep telling you to speak up, it may be because your quietness makes them uncomfortable, not because there's anything wrong with you. This is another common misunderstanding. If you're quiet, people may assume you don't care, you're not friendly, or you're emotionally distant. But in many cases, that couldn't be further from the truth. You may care a lot. You may simply show it in less obvious ways. Quiet people often express themselves through attention, loyalty, consistency, or presence, rather than constant words. But because those things are subtle, others can miss them. So when people mistake your quiet nature for coldness, it may just mean they don't know how to read your style of communication. This is one of the biggest signs that you're naturally quiet. You may actually enjoy listening more than speaking, not because you have nothing to say, but because listening gives you more information. When you listen carefully, you understand people better. You notice details, tone, and emotional shifts that louder people often miss. For many quiet people, conversation is not about filling space, it's about understanding. That's a strength. But in a world where people often talk to be heard, those who listen deeply can seem unusual. If you naturally prefer listening, that's another sign you may simply be too quiet for most people to fully understand. Quiet people often see more than they say. Because they are not busy talking all the time, they tend to observe body language, facial expressions, patterns, and subtle changes in energy. This means they often notice things others completely miss. The funny part is that people may assume quiet individuals are unaware or disconnected, when in reality they may be picking up far more than everyone else in the room. That can make quiet people very insightful, very intuitive, and sometimes surprisingly accurate about situations and people. So if others underestimate your awareness, it may be because your quietness hides how much you actually notice. Another strong sign is that social energy affects you deeply. Quiet people often get exhausted by constant talking, group dynamics, or environments where they feel expected to perform socially. This doesn't mean they hate people. It usually means they need more space, more depth, and more recovery time. Being too quiet for most people can sometimes feel like living in a world that moves too fast. Everyone else seems to want noise, but you need stillness to feel balanced. That's why quiet people often prefer smaller circles, one-on-one conversations, or meaningful interactions over constant social exposure. If large amounts of social interaction drain you quickly, that's another sign that your natural rhythm is quieter than most people's. This is one of the most frustrating parts of being quiet. Because you don't say everything out loud, people often create their own version of who they think you are. They may see you as distant, awkward, serious, mysterious, or hard to approach.
But those labels are usually based on very little real understanding. Quiet people often have complex inner lives that are invisible from the outside. They may feel deeply, think constantly, and reflect often. But none of that is obvious unless they choose to share it. So if people think they know you just because you don't talk much, that's a sign your quietness is making you more misunderstood than truly known.
Being too quiet for most people does not mean there is something wrong with you. It may simply mean you are not built for constant noise, for small talk, or performance-based social energy. You may be someone who listens more, observes more, and thinks more before speaking. And even if that makes people misunderstand you, it can also be a strength. Quiet people often have depth that loud people never notice. So if this video felt accurate, comment below and tell me which sign stood out the most. And make sure to subscribe to Psychology for Dummies for more videos about personality, human behavior, and the psychology behind how people think and act.